Hello and good morning friends, welcome to CEC live lectures. Dear friends, today in this session we are going to talk on our special series business organization. Under this series we would be discussing on what directing and controlling is. In the first half, definitely we would be talking on directing and we would be discussing motivation, leadership, as well as the process of directing, the role of the manager and the importance of directing. Whereas in the second half, we would be discussing on the nature, importance, techniques, types and processes of controlling. And for this discussion, we have once again with us in our studios Dr. Vijay Vrataria. Dr. Vijay Vrataria is Assistant Professor in Department of Commerce, Shahid Bhagat Singh College, University of Delhi. Dear friends, if you have any queries on the topic directing and controlling, then you can call right in the studio, and for that you need to contact us through our toll-free number. Our toll-free number is 1800-110-430. Friends, you are requested to call in the last 10 minutes so that the lecture goes uninterrupted, as well as in the end your queries are also resolved. So let's welcome our guest, Dr. Vijay Vrataria, and let's try to have in-depth knowledge on directing and controlling. Hello sir, welcome to the lecture.
Thank you. In fact, as far as the directing is concerned, this is one of the important management function as such, where the manager acts as a supervisor and he has to look after the affairs of the subordinates. So how exactly they are doing and what kind of assignment has been given to them in terms of the instructions and the orders is to be looking after. So in this particular case, we will be trying to understand the kind of directing process, different important principles of the directing, which are the key for the directing process, different informal organization aspects, leadership role in directing, different concepts of directing, which include the supervision, which include the motivation, leadership, and communication. We will be going through detail with all of these things. So let me brief out one of the important aspect that you can see on the visual. That manager who leads the team, who works basically as a supervisor, has to look after the affairs of the employees, and from time to time, whatever instructions, whatever orders has been given to them, has to be thorough examined, thorough referred to, and wherever with reference to the kind of objective of the organization, the kind of improvement, the guidance or the motivation whenever required is given them so that the objective of the organization can be achieved. So in this way, if we refer the concept of directing, we can say that direction is required for effective implementation of a decision. Every manager in an organization gives direction to his subordinates as a supervisor, and every manager receives direction as subordinate from his superior. So in this particular case, there is a relationship of subordinate and superior, that is the supervisor. So there is a kind of close relationship, close watch between the two. Subsequently, the another aspect within the directing concept is that a management function which includes guiding, inspiring, supervision, and leading people in order to achieve desired results. And subsequently, we can say in the last that it gives proper guidance to people appointed at various posts in an organization so that they can successfully perform their work for which they have been appointed. Two important definitions are there which refer directing and elaborated them. One has been given by Kuntz and the Donnell, which stated that directing is the interpersonal aspect of managing, by which the subordinates are led to understand the contribute effectively and efficiently to the attainment of enterprise objectives. Subsequently, the Marshall has defined directing as involves determining the course, giving order and instruction, and providing dynamic leadership. So in both of these definitions, we can make a kind of understanding that directing has played an important role, especially while referring the or while aligning the organization objective and how those objectives can be met out, how the instructions and orders are given, how they can be applied in a effective manner, so that the efficient or the efficiency of the human resources can be achieved to the maximum level. There are certain characteristics and the nature of the direction function. We can refer some of them. It is the managerial function of management. This is the second last function of management, and this is the continuous function. We cannot say this is at a specific stage, then only it will be relevant, but it is a continuous function. Throughout the organizational life, this is relevant. Number 3, this is related to the human factor, means the directing or the direction applies on the human resources. Number 4, it is collectively involves various functions, which is basically the subparts of the directing, which include motivation, supervision, communication, and coordination. This is another feature of the directing, that it is harmonizing objective, which include or try to ensure that efficiency and rewards go hand in hand together, so that the employees or the subordinates are inspired so that they can work better to the maximum efficient manner. Next is the pervasive function, that is, it is necessary at every level of the organization. Number 7, directing flows from top to bottom, that is from supervisor to the subordinate level. It flows from the top management to the lower management, where it need to be referred how things should move ahead. And it is a creative function. It is not a static function. It keep on changing. It keep on apply different dynamics, and as far as the the challenges of the market are there, so how to face them, and accordingly what kind of changes can be applied in the direction process. Accordingly, it is a dynamic or a changing function or a creative function. As far as the importance of directing is concerned, it is very relevant, very significant, and these are some of the points based on which we can say it is very relevant for an organization. Number 1, it initiates action to achieve results based on set of objective. Organization is having set of objective. In order to achieve those, direction is one such case which initiate those processes. Number 2, it integrates employees' efforts for achieving organizational goals. Number 3, it helps in getting maximum out of the individuals, that is, achieving the goals by applying maximum efforts through the employees, through the supervisors, or basically the subordinates. Next is it facilitates to implement changes, and this generally take place whenever the kind of difficult phase arises. So at that point of time, the directing plays an important role, or the kind of crisis management is one of the important area through which the directing plays an important role. Another important aspect of directing is that it ensures stability and balance in an organization, because it creates balance in an organization by way of balancing the efforts applies in an organization in the human resources. Next, it is effectively applying supervision, motivation, leadership, and communication, as well as the coordination, which helps in achieving the objective and the set objective of an organization out of the different instructions and orders given to the subordinates. Next, if we refer the different aspects which are referred, which is basically part of the direction, then we can see that it include information, what is to be done, and explaining how to do it. It means it basically pass on this information, it basically make awareness or try to check among the subordinate that what tasks need to be done and how it need to be done. Subsequently, the second important aspect within the directing is that supervisor initiates instructions and necessary orders to subordinates. Third is that it inspires people to contribute towards the achievement of organizational objective. So from time to time, the organizational objectives are to be shared, are to be referred to the employees so that they feel motivated, they feel some sort of targets to be achieved, and accordingly the kind of inspiration, accordingly the kind of guidance can take place as a part of the directing. Another is the supervising activities of subordinates. And last but not the least, it leads and motivates the subordinate so that the set of goals of an organization can be achieved to the higher extent. Then we have categorically 4 important factors or so-called the elements of directing which need to be referred, in which number 1, the supervision is there. Then we have motivation, leadership and communication. As far as the supervision is concerned, that is the primary aspect, primary element of the directing, which refer to the observing instruction and guidance subordinates in terms of what they have been ordered or instructed, and at the same time to refer or to check what they are doing in actual. So just it is a kind of alignment between the two. Number 2, it is the motivation element which initiate the process of guiding and maintaining goals oriented behavior among the subordinate so that the best out of the efficiency can be achieved from the subordinates. Number 3, the leadership. It is the ability to lead people by positively influencing them so that meaningful impact and result can be achieved. Last, communication. In this particular case, the information is transferred from one person to the another by transmitting thoughts, feelings, ideas, facts and values. And this is one of the important area. Until and unless the information is not going to pass from different level and from different persons, then it is very difficult to understand what exactly things need to be improved and what exactly going on in the organization at different level. So this is another important element as such. Now we can refer a kind of difference which is required to be distinguished here, that is the supervision and the directing. Although they seems to be different, or in fact the common, but there are some set of distinctions which make it different. As we have referred that supervision is part of the motivation, so there are set of differences. That directing is a wider concept, although the supervision is a narrow concept, because supervision is part of the directing, and as such directing includes motivation and supervision, leadership and communication. And number 3, from the top level of management the directing is flown while the supervision is at lower level of subordinates. Number 4, the directing formulates policies and take important decisions, while in the case of supervision those decisions are implemented and the policies are implemented, and subsequently the close watch is there whether they are implemented in a proper manner and what kind of gap is there, so that any improvement if possible can take place. Number 5, apart from supervision, guiding, counseling, leading and motivating, directing is very crucial as such. But in the case of supervision, close comparison on what has been instructed and what is being done by the subordinate is to be looked after. Now if we look after the important processes of directing, then these are some of the 7 important processes which make directing processes complete process. And the first one, we need to define the objectives, subsequently organizing the efforts. Number 3, measuring the work, that is in terms of the nature of the work, complexity of the works and the skills of the human resources that will be employed for the purpose of completing that task. Number 4, instruction or issuing instruction and orders to the subordinates in terms of 2 aspects. Number 1, what they need to do, and second, how they need to do that. Number 5, that in terms of the directing function, that observing subordinates' performance, how they are doing and what they are doing. Second last, developing people by way of motivation and leadership qualities. And last, communication to share the information what has been communicated and how exactly they are doing and what kind of gaps are there. So that information need to be passed on to the next level of authorities so that necessary measures can be taken at an appropriate point of time. If you refer the crucial role of managers, so-called the supervisors, in the directing function, then this is one of the important area where they play important role. So some of the important role have been defined here. Number one, it issues order and necessary instructions to the subordinate. Number two, it clarifies order and instructions and ensure that they have understood and follow them. So the second step is to clarify that. Number three, ensure that subordinates have required resources in order to complete their job on time. Number four, guiding the activities of subordinates in performing their jobs. Number five, to motivate and lead the subordinates by inspiring and to bring out their high level of efficiency and better performance for the betterment of the organization. Then it is important in terms of coordinating the work of different subordinates so that any confusion can be avoided and to achieve better result. And last but not the least, it detects errors and omissions and ensures their rectification on time. We have some of the important principles of directing which ensures the functioning of directing process in an organization. There are some of the important one are defined here. One is the principle of maximum individual contribution, principle of harmony of objectives, principle of efficiency of direction, principle of unity of command, principle of appropriateness of direction technique, principle of managerial communication, principle of leadership, principle of motivation, principle of follow-up, principle of use of informal organization. Now we can have one-to-one a detailed discussion on each of these principles which are key for this particular directing process. So number one, first principle is maximum individual contribution. In this particular case, it need to understand that through the direction process, individuals' performance need to be at the higher level. So how to achieve that level of maximum productivity or the efficiency out of the human resources need to be ensured through that. So it emphasizes that the directing technique should help every single subordinate to contribute to his maximum level in achieving an organizational goal. The second principle is the principle of harmony of objectives, which referred it in terms of the employee's performance and rewards go hand in hand. It means that not just the performance of the human resources is enough, but at the same time rewarding him through the bonuses, through the motivational factors has to be go hand in hand so that his consistency, his efficiency keep on increasing, keep on improve. So this is another important principle of directing. The another important principle is the unity of command. This states that one person, that is the subordinate, should receive orders from one manager, that is from a single supervisor. Otherwise, if this principle is not applied, which is an important one, then it can create a kind of confusion among the subordinate, and as a result, the work can be hammed or it can create a mess environment in an organization. Then the fourth principle of directing is that principle of appropriateness of direction technique. In this particular case, motivation, supervision, communication, or say leadership must be appropriately and synchronized manner with approach and want of the employees. The fifth number of principle is principle of managerial communication. In this particular case, the two-way communication need to be ensured so that the communication of facts and information in terms of cooperation of the subordinates can be passed on, as it provides them a chance to convey their feelings and share their problems with the higher authorities. The sixth number of principle is principle of leadership. In this particular case, the supervisor are required to have good leadership qualities. This is effectively required as it ensures leading, commanding, influencing and guiding aspects which are required for the subordinates for achieving organizational objective. Principle number 7 of directing is principle of informal organization. Within the formal organization, there are set of informal organizations, which is basically a kind of accurate and authentic feedback purposes, where the subordinate can provide the kind of feedback or requisite information which generally very difficult in the case of formal organization. So through the use of informal organization or this particular principle, the authentic and accurate feedback can be received from the subordinate. The another important principle is the principle of follow-up. So not just issuing the orders, not just issuing the instructions, but also to follow up those instructions, that what exactly going on at the ground level is the important aspect which ensures that regular follow-up and review on consistent basis. Then we can refer the important leadership role in the directing process. As we can say that leadership is a process of positively influencing people, that is the subordinates, and inspiring them to have meaningful impact and achieve results. So in this manner, leadership has three different styles through which it can impart the leadership or the how it can lead the teams in an organization. The first one is the autocratic leadership, which is also known as the authoritative style. In this particular case, the supervisor make their decision on their own without taking any discussion, without taking any feedback from the subordinates. The second leadership style is democratic leadership, which is also known as the participative style. In this particular case, the managers are involving the employees in terms of making the decision. So their feedback, their views are considered while making the final decision to be applied in an organization. The third type of leadership style is free rein, which is also known as the laissez-faire style. In this particular case, the manager believes in minimal supervision and hence it leaves most decisions with employees. The kind of free hand is given to the subordinate to decide on their own whatever aspect they feel correct. So we can have a detailed discussion on these three different leadership style. The first is the autocratic one. In this particular case, you can see a kind of order has been given, which is a one-way communication, and the subordinates are required to follow it. In this particular leadership style, it has set of advantages as well as disadvantages. In this particular case, it is advantages especially when the organization or the supervisor is not looking after the feedback from the subordinate. Then in such cases it can be followed, or at the same time whenever it is required that some urgent decision need to be taken, then it is not required that the subordinate interference, their viewpoints can be listened. And generally this is in the case of military actions or urgent task. It has set of disadvantages as well. For example, poor level of employee motivation, they feel demotivated, they feel that they have to follow the orders and they are not there any sort of suggestion, they are not having any sort of feedback on the jobs, on the assignment given to them. Then we have another second set of leadership style, which is democratic. In this particular case, there is a two-way communication, and in this particular case the supervisor are taking the advices, taking the viewpoints and the feedback of the employees, where in this particular case it is advantageous in terms of getting new ideas, innovative ideas and applying them. And at the same time it has set of disadvantages as well, because it is a time taking process, getting the feedback, applying them, assessing them may take longer time, and as a result, the process will maybe hem. And the third type of leadership style is free rein, which is also known as the laissez-faire leadership style. In this particular case, leader encourages employees to make their own decision, which is free hand decisions. In this particular case, the subordinates are given free hand to decide whatever technique, whatever method they prefer in an appropriate manner. So in this particular case, more freedom for employees is the advantage of this particular style, but at the same time, it may create a kind of mess because the free hand is given to the employees. Now we have some of the important role of motivation in the directing process. We can refer it. So if the performance is to be achieved in an organization, then we have to see the ability and the knowledge of the different individuals. But at the same time, if we apply kind of motivation aspect, then we will find that the performance level is getting higher and higher. So this is important factor of motivation and playing important role in the directing process. Another important role of motivation is that it is a process of inspiring and encouraging the employees to act and get the expected result, and at the same time it helps in maximum utilization of the factors of production, which include man, money and material. It also helps in reducing employee absenteeism and increase their efficiency in order to achieve the organizational objective. It reduces number of complaints and grievances within the organization. And as far as the kind of motivations are concerned, then there are 4 different set of motivations are there. One is the positive motivation, which refers in terms of promotions. At the same time, its reversal is negative motivation, which include the demotion and the transfer. Then we have the monetary motivation. In this particular case, the financial benefit, financial attraction or financial inspiration is given so that the best efficiency can be achieved, which include the incentives and the bonus. Then we have the non-financial or non-monetary motivation, which include the rewards and the recognition for achieving the different tasks. So this is all about the directing process. Now we can conclude here that directing has 4 important elements that we have referred, which include the subordination, the supervision aspect, which refer to have a check in the organization over the employees in terms of what assignment has been given, what instructions has been given, and what orders has been given, and to have a close watch on that, whether they are doing it in the same manner or not, and wherever kind of suggestion is required, wherever kind of confusion need to be removed, this supervision helps them. The second element was the motivation that we have discussed, which is both positive, negative, financial, non-financial, that is monetary and non-monetary terms, which is again a kind of inspiration, helping in terms of guiding, and ultimate aim is to enhance the efficiency so that the employees can work in a just and real manner. At the same time, we have the leadership aspect. In this particular element, we have seen that leadership is required in order to lead the team so that they feel motivated as well as they are ready to take the challenges and follow their leaders, the decisions of the leaders. Subsequently, we have seen the kind of communication element. In this particular case, the kind of two-way communication or the flow of information has been seen, which ensures the kind of information pass on from the subordinate to the higher level of the hierarchy. And subsequently, we have seen the different sort of or the type of leadership style: democratic, autocratic, and laissez-faire one. And this is how we can summarize or can conclude that directing is important, although this is second last, but in order to achieve the objective of the organization, this is very relevant function of the management. Thank you very much. Welcome back, viewers. In today's topic of controlling function of management, we can refer how the controlling function is important, what is the aspect, what is the concept of this, the important definitions of controlling, the important elements in this, types of controlling, and different techniques of controlling we will be referring, and at the same time the correlation, the kind of relation, the kind of linkage between planning and controlling is. We need to understand that aspect as well. So to begin with, we need to understand the concept of controlling. Controlling is at one of the way is a monitoring process. In this particular case, the supervisors are required to have close watch on the employees or the subordinates, that what task has been given and what was the set of standards and what was the outcome of those employees or the other resources of the organization, and to make a comparison between the two, and accordingly whatever gaps are there, whatever margins are noticed there, need to be rectified. So this is one of the concept of this, and we can have the detailed concept of controlling here, that it is a process of monitoring activities to ensure that they are being accomplished as per laid down plan and making necessary actions or corrections in case of deviation noticed in the kind of comparison process. At the same time, it compare the actual performance and the expected control standards. And number 3, if we are looking the controlling process, then this ensures that the right thing are taking place at the right time and in a right manner. So this is very crucial to understand that controlling plays an important role in the management function. Although this is the last function of the management in the managerial functional process, but this is highly correlated with the planning, which is at the first function of the management, and it keep on taking the feedback or the information from the planning of the management function, and accordingly have a close contact or linkage with the planning department. We can have set of definitions given for controlling by different academicians. One has been given by the Kuntz and Donnell, and he has defined controlling as the measurement of accomplishment against the standards and the correction of deviations to assure attainment of objectives according to the plan. At the same time, Henry Fell has defined control as it consists in verifying whether everything occurs in conformity is with the plan, adopted the instructions issued and principle established. It has for its objects to point out weaknesses and errors in order to rectify them and prevent recurrence. So in both these definitions, what is common, what can derive out of these definitions is that there are set of standards that has to be taken out from the planning process, and what is taking place in actuality has to be taken, and both need to be compared, and wherever the kind of gap is noticed, that need to be filled. That need to be filled in terms of achieving the objective of the organization, in terms of the goals and objective of the planning process. Now we can refer the nature, the characteristic of the controlling process. As far as the nature of controlling is concerned, this is the last function of the management after the planning, organizing, staffing and directing. This is a continuous process. We cannot say that this is the end function of the management. Therefore, after that the management is over. No, this is not like that. It is a continuous process. Once a particular job is over, then for the next job, again the control function is very important. It gives the feedback for the subsequent activities, for the subsequent future activities. Then we can see it in terms of the forward-looking function. What has been there in the past, it take lesson from it and make a corrective measure and apply for the future activities, for the future performances. It is a pervasive function, as the case was in the case of the directing one, that it is necessary at every level of organization. Then it is closely related with planning, as I have referred earlier as well, that it need to compare with set plans and standards. Therefore, from time to time at different stages of the planning process and the controlling process, it need to have a close linkages. In the last, we can say it is a dynamic function. It is not a static function, because it need to compare the performances, the output with set standard. Then there are set of importances of controlling which are very relevant and significant in an organization. It helps in achieving organizational goals, and those goals are basically in terms of the difference between the expected results and the actual results is reduced to the minimum level. The another importance is it helps in judging accuracy of standards. In this particular case, manager ensures or try to ensure that standards are not more or less than the general standards, and wherever required and wherever need arises, then those standards can be redefined. Another importance is that it is playing an important role in terms of optimum use of resources. It helps in ensuring best possible use of human and physical resources in an efficient manner. Number 4 importance of controlling is that it enhances motivational level of employees, because through controlling, evaluating employees' performance make it very transparent and helps in deciding the motivational requirement, maybe through the training, maybe through the incentivizing, maybe through guiding or say leadership qualities. The 5th importance of controlling is that it helps in maintaining discipline and transparency within the organization. This takes place by helping in checking and detecting undesirable activities, which may include the corruption, which may include the delay process of approval, which may include the uncooperative attitude of the subordinates. The another importance of controlling is that it establishes coordination among different departments, which is required, which is must, because in this particular case, through the controlling, all the departments of the organization are interdependent, and controlling make them share key information with each other, which is crucial for each of the department. If you refer the controlling process, then this is 4-tier process in the controlling. The initial one is to establishing control standards. Subsequently, the actual performance is measured at different levels and different locations. Then in the third tier, the first two are compared, that is comparing the actual performance with the control standards. And in the last, wherever these two are having a kind of gap, then the necessary corrections can be taken place in case of the deviation. So we can study now each of these processes of controlling in detail. As we have referred, the first process of controlling was establishing control standards. So this is important one. In this particular case, the plan, the documentation, the policies and procedures need to be studied in detail, and this include developing, documenting and explaining clear standards and methods for measuring particular performances. Subsequently, these standards are basically the benchmark against which actual performance is compared, that is at the second process of the controlling. And there are basically two broader categories within the first process of controlling, which include the quantitative standards and another is the qualitative standards. The qualitative standards are also referred as the quantified or the tangible one. In this particular case, a few set of examples may include the production level, the sales volume, the expenses, the nature of expenses, the labor work hours and the profit levels. While in the case of qualitative standards, which are intangible in nature and qualitative in nature. In this particular case, the set of examples are, say, goodwill, the company image, the brand image, the industrial relations and the employee morale. In the case of second process of controlling, the performance measurement is considered. The performance is measured at the different level of the organizations, and accordingly in the third process of controlling, the first two processes have been completed, are compared. So let's have a look at the second process of controlling. In this particular case, all aspects of the job are thoroughly measured, examined, and in this particular case, the actual performance measurement must be complete in all respects, and it should be done in a consistent and regular manner to facilitate proper data available to make necessary decisions. Another important aspect in this process is that performance at work should be measured in an objective manner without fear, any biasness or favoring the process. It may include the daily, monthly, weekly, annually sale figure measure and sales performances. The third aspect of controlling process is comparing the actual performance and the control standard. In this process, the comparison is taken place between the two in terms of ascertaining the causes of deviation in the actual performance and the control standard. Thorough analysis and proper presentation of deviation need to be devised, need to be referred, which may include the statistical methods which are usually adopted to look at deviation from a broader perspective. And in this particular case, the comparison helps in deciding to abandon certain policies, maybe the existing procedures or tasks, or may be required to modify them or to leave them in place. Say there are certain examples which can be referred in this particular case, but the best one is that minor deviation may be noticed For example, when electricity consumption changes by 2%. So that is a minor deviation, but yes, it can be ignored. But at the same time, there could be a major deviation when, say, profitability decreases or the production decreases or increases by, say, 12%. So this is more than 10%. So that can be considered as a major deviation. The last process of controlling is correction in case of deviation, which we have seen in the previous slide is the major deviation, that is in terms of the profitability. So in this particular case, the important measures or the processes that will be considered could include taking remedial actions so that deviation may not occur subsequently. Further, the corrective measures initiated to rectify and detect in case of any detect errors or deviation is found in the actual performance. And there are some certain corrective steps that are suggested in this correction process of in the case of deviation, which may include change in methods, rules, procedures, strategies, etc. It may include the job redesign or replacement of personnel, that is for the better improvement in the existing set of performances. It may also include the re-establishing budgets and standards. It may also include the kind of changing machinery and the processes that are very relevant in order to achieve the performances which are set as compared to the set control standards. Then another suggestive or the corrective step could be in terms of identifying recurring bottlenecks and avoiding such cases. Then we are having 4 important areas of control where this controlling applies. The first one is the physical resources, the another is the human resources, the third is the informational resources, and fourth one is the financial resources. As far as the first physical resources are concerned, the control can be applied on the stocking, quality control, equipment control, and supplies management or error in machinery. On the other hand, the second resources or the area could be the human resources, where the selection and placement, training and development, performance appraisal, and compensation can be controlled through the controlling process. The third area of control is in the informational resources. In this particular case, the organizational internal information or external market environment can be controlled, can be referred. The last one is the financial resources. In this particular case, the financial information in terms of the control over financial resources, organizational debt, or say payback period can be referred under this. We have some key efficient controlling aspects which need to refer. Without that, it is incomplete to understand the this controlling process. The first is clearly defining objectives and standards, then to choose efficient control techniques, and subsequently suitably understand the needs of any department before applying any controlling process. Subsequently, to simplify it in terms of easy to understand and implement the controlling process or the technique. Next is focusing key and critical areas, then flexible and responsive towards new developments in the controlling process. Then we have the reasonable, justifiable, attainable, and practical nature of the controlling process, and economical and easy to maintain control process, and last but not the least, wider accessibility of this controlling in terms of easy, factual, and verifiable figures and facts. Now we can refer the planning and controlling cycle just to understand the kind of reference of this planning and controlling as such. So we can refer that planning is the initial phase which comes much before the controlling, and controlling is one which comes at the end when the planning is over. Although the planning is the first function of the management, controlling is the last function of the management. So in this particular diagram, we can see that planning includes goals, objectives, strategies and plan which subsequently pass on, or the next step comes of the organization, which includes the structure and the human resource management processes. The next is the directing process, which include supervision, motivation, leadership, communication, coordination, etc. And last comes the coordination, which include the standard measurement, comparing it, and then taking necessary measures, corrective measures if required. So ultimately we can see that after the controlling, it is highly correlated with the planning, because those standards can be measured, can be tracked out through the planning process. Based on this, we can have a kind of emergence of planning process and its interaction, its linkages with the controlling process, where we need to define the planning process into 5 steps. The first is the formulation and modification of goals. Second planning process is identification of present situation. Third process is development of alternate solution. Fourth is selection of best solution. And fifth is refinement of solution and planning of implementation. In this particular case, its in parallel controlling processes include setting the norms, measuring the present state. Third is calculating deviation, and fourth is applying different analysis, the casual analysis, and last is the developing of corrective action. So if we just see the kind of comparison between the two, then we can find that the last process of planning is being referred by the developing of corrective action, and at the same time the last process of controlling is also referring the second last process of the planning, which include the selection of best solution as well as the development of alternate solutions, like this. So we can find that each process of controlling is highly reflecting or highly referring the individual processes of the planning. Subsequently, we can see 3 important types of control, which is the input or the feed forward control. In this particular case, it is referred at the time of the input processes, and in this particular case the anticipate problem is taken care at the time of input of the problem. The second is the concurrent problem or the concurrent control, which is taken care at the time of ongoing processes, where the supervisors has to have a close watch in the ongoing processes and correct problems as and when they happen. The last is the feedback control. In this particular case, the output or the performance is referred, which is basically compared, and accordingly the corrections or the problems once referred need to be rectified. So we can refer each one of them in a brief manner. Feed forward control is called as preliminary or preventive control, which focuses on human resources, material and financial resources, and the purpose of such cases in terms of selection and hiring of new employees. This is one case where it can be applied at the preliminary level, and in this particular case the attempt is to identify and prevent deviations in the standards before they occur. So this is the initial stage. At the input level, this particular control can be applied. The second is at the time of the processes, that is the concurrent control, which is useful in terms of monitoring the ongoing employee activity to ensure consistency with quality standards. In this particular case, the rely is required to be on the performance standards, rules and regulations for guiding employees' tasks and their behavior. And this also ensures that the work activities produce the desired results. And the last is the feedback control. Under this, the output is referred, the performance is referred, where the work is over or already performed. Then in such cases, the corrective action is after the fact is considered, which include when the problem has already occurred. So in this particular process, the reviewing information to determine whether performance meets established standards. Now at the end, we can refer some of the techniques which need to be referred in the controlling process, although these techniques have been categorized into two parts. One is the traditional one, which have been referred in past, but as far as the modern techniques are concerned, they are very relevant, and we can name some of those techniques. In the case of traditional techniques, it is through observation, financial statements, break-even analysis, standard costing, and say budgetary control. But in the case of the modern techniques, we can refer the management audit, management by objectives, we also refer it as MBO, program evaluation and review technique, also referred as PERD, then critical path method, that is CPM, and management information system, MIS, or another important is the return on investment, ROI. So this is all about the controlling we have referred, and we can say in the end as a concludatory remark that controlling is nothing just the last function, but also an important function for the beginning of the next plan or for the future endeavor. So thank you very much.
With this note, thank you, sir. Thank you so very much for giving us a productive session where we discussed on directing and controlling. So apart from directing and controlling, how coordination and planning plays important part, and are they all coordinated with each other?
Yes. As we have referred that planning is the initial process, and planning is the only base through which the other subsequent processes works. And as far as the controlling is concerned, it is highly based on the plans. So if the planning is having some set of objective, goals, policies and procedures, so this is the base for the controlling to decide the standards which will be compared with the actual performances, and accordingly any deviation if noticed can be improved, or that deviation can be corrected accordingly. And as you have referred the coordination, yes, this is important aspect within the directing, I would say, because if the proper coordination is not there, it can create a kind of confusion environment, as we have seen in the case of one of the important principle of the direction, that is unity of command. So if the unity of command principle is not applying properly, it can create a kind of incoordination, and this incoordination can lead to a kind of mess and confusion. As a result, the objective or the set objective will not be met, and it can forfeit the objective or the goal of the organization in such case.
Definitely, we believe that all what we have taught to the students today through you. I think we have a call over here. Hello. Let's wait for a call. If there is a call over here, then we'll definitely talk to the student who might be calling us, and the student who have a query. So, what else are we going to study in the future sessions, as a business organization itself is a very wide area?
Yes, we will be referring another two important areas in detail, categorically the motivation aspect and the leadership aspects. In this particular case, we will be referring the different theories which have been referred by the different professionals. As such, we will be referring them in detail, what
Hello.
Aspects they have referred, what key areas
I
they
think
have
we
referred.
have a
Hello,
caller
I am
right now.
just calling from Delhi.
Yes, please ask your question.
I listen all the lecture of Vijay Bhattaria. He explained very well and very easily all the aspect of leadership. So I have a question on whether single leadership style fit in every situation, or it should be different based on the different situation.
He wants to ask that if we are talking about the leadership, so does it fits into a single style or single pattern, or it fits into every pattern or every style?
Yes, it is really an interesting question. It depends on the kind of organization, the large organizations as well as the small organization. It doesn't cost much, but if you are having a good leaders, then obviously the kind of style of leadership you refer, it really improves the performance and the kind of efficiency among the employees or the subordinates. So thus we can say in this particular case, it is really very crucial. It doesn't make much sense like the kind of organization we can refer, but yes, leadership plays an important role irrespective of the nature of the organization irrespective of the scale of the organization or irrespective of the sector of the organization in which we are referring, because this is the kind of inspiration, this is the kind of guiding force among the employees that they will have to refer, they will have to follow the kind of guidance given by the leaders.
Definitely, we think, dear friend, that your query have been resolved. Thank you for calling us, and you're requested to call again and again, so that we believe that your query is fulfilled and you get what you desired for. Thank you for calling us, and dear friends, of course, you can call us in our live lectures through our toll-free number. Our toll-free number is 1-800-110-430. But by now, we are about to take your leave. We would be meeting again very soon and would be discussing on another topic under business organization. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.